Hello, thanks for joining me, astrologer Patrick Arundell, for your Virgo New Moon Deep Dive video. This occurs on the 17th of September at 11 AM Universal Central Time. If you're new to my channel, I'd be honoured if you'd subscribe. And if you'd like to know what year 2021 will hold for you as an individual, based on your time, date and place of birth, you can get your celestial blueprint this year and get the rest of this year free, plus all of the 12 months of year 2021 and your character analysis, and get 30% off with my special offer. Please see the link below. Now, as ever, I don't just focus on the event itself in terms of the Virgo new moon, but also the wider implications of other planetary influences that day. So you can see from the wheel on the screen that the Sun and the Moon are at 25 degrees exactly in Virgo, but they're also forging a very enabling, structurally perfect angle to Saturn, the planet of structure, which itself is at 25 degrees in the earthy Capricorn. So this can be an opportunity to really do something constructive over the next 4 weeks. But of course, new moons are also about new energy, and the sign of Virgo is very much about purity. So over this next 4-week period, we have the chance to try to clean up our act. And if we can be a bit more virtuous about what we eat and drink, the amount of exercise that we get, or getting our lives working more efficiently, that's going to be a really smart thing to do. Now, if you are somebody who feels that your life is very organised, the important thing with this new moon is try to find new ways that you can actually add to the already positive energies that you're manifesting to make sure that you're continually moving forwards. And Virgo energy essentially is about the details. But we do have a chance with this particular new moon to think about the big picture, because the ascendant is in the sign of Scorpio, which is very much about transformations, and it's conjunct the part of fortune. So I think it's asking us really to try to see beyond the superficial that we often are bombarded with, particularly on social media. And with the 10th house cusp at 10 degrees in Virgo, it means that the Sun and the Moon come together in Virgo in a very world-facing position. And that midheaven also forges a very enabling link with Uranus, which happens to be in the 6th house, which is very Virgoan in itself. And Uranus, of course, is about innovation and change, looking at things in a fresh way. Now, of course, it is a bit resistant to change in the sign of Taurus, and it is squaring with Venus on this particular event. So it's going to be important over the next month to remember that even if we are trying to embrace the opportunity that this Saturn-infused new moon gives us, to make the most of building something up, because there's been so much lost this year, whether it is of life, whether it's been of our personal freedom, whether it's been of money, whether it's been the ability just to get on with our lives. The fact is, there will be things that are left. And this particular new moon is asking us to focus on those, the valuable strands that are still there, and work very thoroughly and precisely and systematically to build something up. So it is a great opportunity, but it does still have a challenge, because of course Saturn has been in retrograde since the 11th of May. That began in the sign of Aquarius. From the 2nd of August, it's been retrograde in the sign of Capricorn, and since the 27th of July, it's been broadly by 3 degrees at least in a square with the impatient energies of Mars in its home zone of Aries. And those two are aggravating each other through to the 5th of October. But the great news is that within the scope of this new moon, on the 28th of September, Saturn ends its retrograde. So I feel that what we're seeing that this year, with the stellium of energy that's been in the sign of Capricorn, especially on the 12th of January, and also on the 10th, when Saturn and Pluto were coming very close to exactly conjunct. They were opposite the lunar eclipse in the sign of Cancer, and really the fallout that we've experienced since then has really come from that stellium of energy. So I feel that what we're seeing now is how we can come out of this situation by refining our approaches to health, which is governed by Virgo, by refining our approach to what we eat and drink, by being more disciplined in our approach to the detail of things, not being so careless really with our resources, because both the new moon and Saturn are in earth signs, so we're looking for tangible benefits of improvements. And that means showing that sense of discipline, appreciating what we've got, being discriminating about what's good or not so good for us, and then really putting a load of energy into what we can affect positively. And the best way to deal with that Mars square is essentially not to try too hard, not to go too quick. It is to be very thorough, very precise, very practical, and if we do that, and we check each element out and take a step-by-step approach, we won't let the impatience of Mars clashing with Saturn have the same impact as it has in recent weeks. And we can start to feel an awful lot more optimistic about what we can bring from this next month, because I do feel that good stuff can come through, particularly around technology, pushing back against COVID in particular. I think the technology is going to improve. I think we are going to see more evidence of medical trials. You may be someone who is vehemently against taking a vaccine. I wouldn't be so keen myself, to be honest, initially. But a lot of people will want to take a vaccine. And if the trials are done and there is some compelling evidence, there will be those who will be persuaded. But of course, it's not just about vaccines. It's also about how we can make sure that our immune systems are improved by better health practices. So that's very Virgoan, particularly in terms of tummy health. So, you know, things like taking good cultures, making sure that we reduce the amount of sugar and processed foods that we have, bringing in that purity of Virgo in a very positive way like that is going to be a very enabling thing to do. But when it comes to those personal relationships, if you're single, someone quite thrilling could enter your world, perhaps through your job or a practical situation that you wouldn't expect to get chatting to someone, like in a supermarket queue or at a bus stop. Or it could be that in an existing relationship, there's an opportunity here to revitalise things. And I think if you can work together in a very constructive way, for example, making sure that both partners put a fair share into the domestic load, that's very Virgoan. If there's one person who's not being quite so self-sacrificing, very Virgoan, a good time through that square between Venus and Uranus to adapt and be more flexible and more giving. On the other hand, if a relationship has really run its course, some folks may be thinking about analysing what's really not working, the 6th house energy of Uranus and of the Virgo new moon, and really focusing on that to such a degree that it's more difficult to see what benefits the relationship is giving them, and it may push them to contemplate an ending. But no relationship is going to leave anyone's world that's not truly right for them, and in general, this is an opportunity to really raise ourselves up and find that greater sense of refinement, but also get tangible results. Now, please stay with me because I'm going to give you your precise zodiac sign forecast for each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces. Aries, you've probably found out this year that some big goals and ambitions that you really wanted to achieve at the start of the year have either come through for you, or perhaps you've really had to reconsider. And I think if you have had to reconsider, this next month is going to be a time when you can really start to fine-tune the new direction of travel that your plans are going towards. If you've been fortunate enough to make the most of everything that's happened this year, you could start to see a real build-up and a sense that all that hard work, perspiration and application over many months is really starting to give you a tangible reward. But money could see you a bit impulsive over the next month. You may want to splash out. You may want to treat somebody quite close to you. And also, Mercury, the planet of communication, is in your sector of relating on this new moon, and that's squaring with the planet Pluto. So I think it's very, very important that if you are discussing something with somebody, particularly in a personal context, that you are listening carefully and not just coming back with some powerful arguments which may be right as far as you see them in a factual context, but don't quite understand where the other person is coming from. Because I feel that you're definitely wanting a bit of romance, a bit of glamour, a little bit of drama in your situation at the moment. But I do feel that those practicalities call out to you first and foremost. And if you feel a partner doesn't feed that desire for excitement, then perhaps it's a bit much to expect them to give it all to you. You have to create some of this sense of extra excitement too. Now, Taurus, with Uranus in your sign in a right angle to Venus, it could be around the home zone or a home-based relationship where you are feeling a bit restless. With Mercury in a square with Pluto, there is a potential really to be a bit resentful actually about any everyday obligations and be more focused on the freedoms that you want to explore, which would be entirely understandable because the new moon for you is in a lovely location. It's very much about expressing your individuality and those passions. But with Saturn in the mix, and because you are an earth sign yourself, you get this, there just has to be something in it that has some kind of meaningful value. So I think just being self-expressive for the sake of it, in other words, having good ideas, demonstrating flair, but I feel there has to be something solid and tangible for you to really get excited. But something around your home may be in a change process. You may be investigating some different options, and you could be feeling a little bit restless. Now, Gemini, this particular new moon occurs in your sector of the home, of the family. And because of the role of Saturn, it is possible that something is altering, but in a very constructive way. So that could be that you're actually planning to move altogether or to improve. And, you know, if you can't actually physically change where you're residing, you can change how you live there. So that could be in a decorative sense. It could be by some kind of upgrade or renovation. Also, with Mercury in a very playful part of your situation, I feel that you need to feel that your ideas and creativity give you some kind of financial reward. But Mars is still clashing with Saturn, and I don't think you can be too idealistic about your future at the moment. It's been a very difficult year for everybody, pretty well. And when it comes to your income, I think it's really appreciating what you've got. And if you have got longer term hopes, I think they're really going to swing into action for you from the winter solstice, when we have a glorious alliance between Saturn and Jupiter, and also a fabulous new moon in your sector, or a solar eclipse I should say, in your sector of relating on the 14th of December. So you've got a lot to look forward to. So I think if things are moving forwards, but not quite at the pace you want, just try to take that in your stride. Now, Cancer, this new moon occurs in your third solar house, which is about ideas, and it's about your points of view. It can be about your belief system, it can be about siblings, can be about neighbours, but the location of Saturn is in your sector of relating. So this new moon gives you an awesome opportunity to have some very constructive discussions, and you may forge some kind of professional relationship, you may forge some kind of personal relationship. But with Mars still in the mix, the one thing you can't do is boss things too much. You are a cardinal sign, and therefore there's part of you that does like to be in control. And Mars, certainly high in the sky, is giving you a greater sense of confidence potentially. But I think there's going to be a pushback if you try to be too much the decision maker in situations. So try to be as collegiate as possible. Take soundings, listen to what others are saying, because the broader range of views that you're tuning into, the more informed your plans can become and the better they will be. So try not to be too nuclear in terms of your decision making. Keep the lines of communication open, and that could lead to a solid connection with somebody new, or an improvement in a relationship which perhaps hasn't been quite so good more recently. Now, Leo, yours of course is the most dramatic sign of the zodiac. You're ruled by the sun, and having Venus in your situation as this new moon occurs is glorious. But it is clashing with Uranus, which is in your sector of work. Perhaps if you're wanting to do something very different in terms of your employment situation, if a partner is very supportive of that, I don't think that you're going to have a problem at all with this new moon. In fact, you're going to have a lot of gains, and you can marshal your resources in an extremely effective way over the next month, as long as you accept that this is a time to be very much involved in the minutiae of things, the detail. This is because Mars is in a location which could see you being a bit resentful about all of that, feeling restless, wanting to focus on freedom, really cheesed off with too many obligations and responsibilities. But if you can just see that this is a time of the year to just focus on those everyday essential details, there's so much you can achieve to give yourself a much firmer platform to move forwards into more dramatic possibilities later this year. Now, Virgo, having a new moon in your own sign is just fabulous, because this is about the opportunity to recreate your individuality, or make the most of what makes you unique. You're someone who can actually be very sacrificing on behalf of others, work hard to support people, but sometimes are you losing sight of your need to be a free spirit? Now, there's nothing free-spirited about Saturn in your 5th solar house, but it is kind of saying to you, if you can take your individuality and take your flair and your self-expression and package them in some kind of way which feels comfortable to you, because you can see that it has some kind of meaning to it, this could be a time you could really flourish. I think what can be a little bit more challenging could be a relationship which may be giving you pause for concern, or at least pause for reflection. It doesn't mean to say a relationship is going to finish, but Venus in the 12th solar house does point towards you musing exactly what you gain from this involvement. And with Uranus in the most freedom-loving part of your situation, if you do feel hemmed in, that you can't be yourself, that you're so overly committed to pleasing the other person, and they're not really as so tuned into your need to be you, I think there is a real need to think very carefully about whether that is the right situation for you. But if you're single, perhaps somebody's going to show an interest in you in a little bit of a non-obvious way. So watch out for non-verbal communication. You know, the way someone's looking at you, how much they're noticing what you're doing or trying to catch your eye. So stay very alert in that regard. Now for you, Libra, having this full moon in your 12th solar house could, on the face of it, be a little bit challenging. This is the sector of what we're less conscious of. So it's the areas that sometimes we can be a bit reluctant to look at. Perhaps, for example, our fears, and the areas where we feel a little bit uncertain, or we're not quite sure if people are really in our corner and have our back. And it is true that all those things are something, are strands that you could grapple with, but the link with Saturn is very constructive. I think if you and a person in a close relationship have been seeing things differently about where you live, this new moon could cause some issues, to be honest, because your ruler is in conflict with Uranus, your ruler is Venus, and it's in a part of your horoscope which is very much to do with your future, and it's to do with the collective. And if you're in a relationship where you feel that the other person isn't so keen for you to venture out, they're really wanting you to be strictly with them, I think that could become a little bit claustrophobic for you. But in general, I think this new moon is asking you to think about things that perhaps have happened over the last year. Have a bit of a muse and reflection. If you do need to retreat a little bit, take that in your stride. But if there have been tensions since the end of July in a particular relationship, as Mars has clashed with Saturn, you can't ignore these. You've got to grapple these. And that may mean being very honest in terms of looking at what isn't quite working so well. But if things are pretty well progressing for you, I think this can be a time of preparation, ready for when the Sun enters your sign later in September, which of course is really exciting, because then we're going to see also the autumn equinox and the halfway point of the year, and when you're really going to come into your own. So I think for now this is a time of preparation. Now Scorpio, this new moon occurs in your sector of friendship, the future, your alliances, where you interact and network with people, where you're sociable. Now, of course, there's not a lot sociable about Saturn. It is about being very thorough. But in the third solar house where Saturn is for you, this is about your ideas. And you could link to a group of people or a principle, or start to formulate a longer term plan in a very positive way over the next month. What's not to like? Well, the most important thing is not to get stressed if things aren't going quite as quickly as you would like. Your traditional ruler of Mars continues to be in a testing angle to Saturn through to the 5th of October. So just go through the processes and see where it takes you. Someone rather influential could surprise you by showing an interest in you in a professional context, or it could be someone who's older or younger than you who seems to show an interest in you romantically. I wouldn't dismiss it out of hand. But in a romantic relationship, it's also important that a partner really recognises your talents and salutes them and gives you the affirmation and validation of your quality as a person. Now, Sagittarius, this new moon occurs in your sector of success. And because it forges such a steady, very consistent generating energy with Saturn, if you have really suffered financially over the last couple of years, which really wouldn't be a surprise, with Saturn and Pluto together in your second solar house, and your ruler there too, where it's not happy, Jupiter is never producing good results generally financially for the world at large when it transits through the sign of Capricorn. I do feel that you may be a bit skeptical about what I have to say. What I would say is I don't feel that you can be too gung-ho in your approach to resources. I don't feel that you can be too risk-taking. The gambler in you has perhaps got a bit burnt over the last couple of years, and I think what you need to do now is a bit like if you're a football player or a soccer player, as you would say in the States. If you're having a little run of bad form, don't keep trying to play the most ambitious and creative pass. Just do something simple and well around your financial resources, around a business idea. Build up your confidence, because over the next month it can come back in a really awesome way. But in a romantic context, I feel if you do feel that someone is denying you the freedom, which is so essential to every Sagittarius, you know, if you're in a relationship where you really have been very devoted, but you've lost a little bit of your room and space to be an individual, you may be thinking again about things over the next 4 weeks. Also, Mercury's in your sector of friendship, and there's part of you that could feel quite nostalgic for someone that you used to be linked with that you're not in touch with at the current time. So you may find yourself wanting to get in touch. Now, Capricorn, of course, Saturn is your ruler. So all this action that's going on around Saturn, you're very well versed in the qualities of Saturn, but also you're very used to dealing with the restraints that he imposes upon you. This gives you a real endurance, a ability to work extremely hard, sometimes when other people have run out of energy and you're keeping going. But I do feel that in that right angle with Mars since the end of July, there may have been some tensions between you and someone in your home environment. Perhaps you're seeing things in a very different way. Perhaps it's a generational issue. Perhaps you're younger, the other person's older, or vice versa. And you're not quite getting where each of you are coming from. And this new moon gives you the desire to kind of escape some of these tensions and stresses and strains and do something more spontaneous and live a bit more in the moment. Because of COVID restrictions, travel isn't quite so easy for many of us to get to and to explore just now. But if that's possible where you're living, I think there's every chance you'll want to get out, even if it's to get out into the locality around where you live and just do something that's a bit more vigorous or a bit more mentally stimulating if you have to stay in the comfort of your home. And that can be something that you can explore in a very, very positive way. Now, Mercury is high in the sky for you, and that's giving you a potential opportunity around your work. But you can't dominate this situation. Someone may come towards you with an idea or a proposal. It may not be everything you want, and you may feel that there's some strings attached. There may well be some strings attached, but I do think it's going to be an opportunity. And don't forget, Saturn is about what's solid, and with the sun and the moon in the part of your horoscope, the 9th house, that can be about contracts and agreements. So something solid could shape up, but that may not be quite as exciting as you would like, but may have some benefits. And Uranus retains a place in the most exciting part of your chart, which is very much about being a free spirit, but it is in a rather tense right angle with Venus. So when it comes to a more romantic equation, I feel you could be craving for a bit more sensual action. And if that's missing, that could be something that this adventurism that comes through the new moon can really speak to you about. And that could see you, especially if you're single, wanting to meet up with different types of people. Be a bit more experimental. It will do you the world of good. Now, Aquarius, having Venus in your opposite sign means that you've got charm abundantly at this time. You can link with people very effectively. It is true that Uranus is in your home sector, and if you and a partner are thinking about making some changes or moving altogether, it really wouldn't be a complete surprise. And with the sun and the moon in your 8th solar house, something to do with longer term finances, a pension, an investment, an inheritance, may be something that is going to be discussed. It could be that something you've been squirreling away for absolutely years can come back to you now in a very positive way. Also, Mercury, the planet which is exalted in the second decan of your sign, is forging a right angle to Pluto. And I think that's just saying to you that whatever happens to you over the next month, it's going to be important to control your thinking. You're usually very good at this because you're a very logical person and you have a gift for seeing the big picture. But remember, Virgo energy is very much about the tiny detail. And although it's important to be very aware of being discriminating, which is the positive side of Virgo, I wouldn't pile into the detail to the point that it crushes that normal desire you have to see the big picture, to see the best in people. There is still a global picture that you can embrace and enthuse others with, but something to do with your past or your psychology is still calling out to you at this time. And it's not really going to end fully until partly through 2023, and then from 2024 when Pluto moves into Aquarius. So it continues to pull hidden things up from the depths or reveal secrets or people who are not necessarily your best friends, but with your traditional ruler of Saturn set to join your sign again on the 14th of December, and Jupiter come there as well on the 20th, and they come together for the first time since 1405 on the winter solstice. Such an exciting time. There's also a terrific solar eclipse in the sign of Sagittarius on the 14th of December, plus Venus from halfway through December. There's lots coming into the back end of this year for you to be really, really excited about. So if you're clearing up still some loose ends tying things up, or still feeling that you're working feverishly behind the scenes and not really getting the tangible results that you're due, keep patiently going through the processes. This is where Saturn is really going to aid you, because you can be just as applied as Capricorns. You just bring a different set of skills. Your tenacity can be awesome. So keep on keeping on. Now, Pisces, of course, final, but not last. Well, you're last, but certainly not least important. And for you, Jupiter, your co-ruler, is in a right angle with Mercury, and Mercury is in the part of your horoscope to do with resources. So anything to do with business, if someone makes you an offer, it could be very exciting, but just scrutinize it. Actually, the new moon occurs in your sector of relationships and relating, and also the people that you need to compete with, the known people you need to compete with. So if you work in a very competitive business environment, it could be the other people in your work situation, or it could be other organisations that you have to be on your mettle to deal with. The 7th solar house, where this new moon occurs, is a wonderful opportunity to check out whether you're getting what you really need in your partnerships, but also to make sure that you're setting out your stall of what you require clearly to those people you're involved with. You know, if you're really building up a sense of resentment, but you're not expressing what you need, well, the other person won't know. So we have to clarify things with the 7th house. But also it is a time to be more conscious of other people's situations. Our listening skills are very important when we have a new moon in this area. And I think there could be some really exciting developments over friendships, connections, or alliances in the next month. But also you may decide that some people aren't for you. And with Uranus in your 3rd solar house of quick moving ideas, technology, but Venus in your sector of practicalities, it may be some practical issues. If you feel that people aren't as sacrificing or thoughtful or caring as you, that could see you putting in a firmer boundary. I don't think that's a bad thing. Any relationship should be a fair exchange, most of all of energy. So if you're encountering people who kind of leave you feeling a bit depleted, they don't uplift you, they don't give you something complementary to what you're giving them, those are the relationships to review. Now, of course, that doesn't mean to say that if some people don't quite meet our expectation, that we just clear them ruthlessly out of our lives. I don't think that's a smart thing to do at all. But maybe there is a hierarchy that you need to accept of friends or associates in your life, and not expect everybody to produce the same for you. That way you can be more realistic that some people don't quite get you, but they're still lovely and they can still play a role in your life. But if there are people who really aren't good for you, then I think this new moon can see you thinking very carefully about what your options are. So that concludes all the zodiac forecasts. But remember, if you want to ascend above your zodiac sign and discover real serious astrology and what 2021 holds, please see my special offer below, where you can get your 12-month forecast based on your time, date and place of birth, but get the rest of year 2023 and a character analysis which explores your personality, your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities to give you so much more illumination for your future going forwards. And it's all 30% off. But for now, stay safe, take care, and good luck.